All right, Chavra on Zoom, you hear me all right? Great to see everyone. All right, Rabbi, say good morning. Good morning. Let us continue in Emeretz Hashem Tzidkas HaTzaddik. So we are going to finish up Os Beis today. So remember again, the Rebbe was describing to us the power of brachas, specifically as brachas being a tool for the ability to create a sense of God awareness. As God awareness, the realization that the Ribono Shel Olam is a part and a fixture and a partner in my life in every step of the way is one of the most important concepts, one of the most important initial steps in our avodas Hashem, in our service of the Ribono Shel Olam. So we left off. I actually think we probably got a little bit further, but let's just pick up again. Let's just pick up again on page Gimel in the Be'urei Chasidus, the left-hand column, all the way on the bottom. Va'akara ba'Hashem yisbarach zeu aschalas haknisa shel ha'adam la'sagas hamitas haTorah kimo shenemar reishis chachma yiras Hashem shebetchila. Let's just read a little bit. Shebetchila lamud page dalid limud ha'chachma shel ha'Torah yashrish ha'adam belibo yiras Hashem. So as the pasuk says, reishis chachma. What is the beginning of all wisdom? The beginning, the initial step of all wisdom is Yiras Hashem. Now, what is Yiras Hashem? So normally we translate Yiras Hashem as fear of God or reverence of God, but HaTzaddik understands it differently. He says, V'yiras shamayim, hu al yidei shemekayim es ha'adam es ha'kasuv, shivisi Hashem l'negdi samid. Dahainu al yidei ha'akara she'Hashem yizbarach omed l'negdo samid. So it's interesting. So HaTzaddik says, it's true, that Yiras Hashem is reverence. Again, Rabbi Yitzchak Berditchev, again, the Rebbe says that people translate Yiras Hashem as fear of God. The Rebbe says Yiras Hashem can't mean fear. He says something very interesting. He says when you fear something, you stay away from it. Right? In other words, I fear fire, so I always keep a distance from fire. The Rebbe says the entire avoda of the Yid, everything we try to do, is to come closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So he says Yiras Hashem means reverence of God. Now, when you revere something, what happens? When you revere something, it's on a pedestal, right? You revere something, you don't throw your arm around it, right? You don't have a beer with it, right? When you revere something, you want to be as close to it as possible, but the revered item is on the pedestal, and I'm right here. Yiras Hashem is this reverence of course, I'm running close. I'm running close, with a recognition that the Ribono Shel Olam is on this pedestal, and I'm right here, right underneath him, but right next to him. So HaTzaddik says, how do you get to Yiras Hashem? How do you get to this sense of reverence of the divine? Ultimately, again, through God awareness. Through God awareness, when I reach this level, of recognition that the Ribono Shel Olam is by my side each and every moment, that literally, again, I live in His presence, that in and of itself cultivates this sense of Yiras Shamayim. Kimo shekasov Harama ba'agod reish arachaim, as the Rama in his first footnote in Shulchan Aruch writes, Shekishe Yasima Adam El Libo Shamelech Hagodla Kodesh Baruch Hashem Milei Kol Haaretz Kvodo Omeid Alav Veroa B'Masov. So the Rama writes, so when a person begins to contemplate, a person begins to internalize, and a person begins to think about the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the great King, who fills up the entire universe, Omeid Alav Veroa B'Masov, stands next to me and sees all of my actions, Miyad Yagia Elav Hayira. In that moment, when I have this recognition that Hashem is right next to me, that Hashem sees everything that it is that I'm doing, from that realization stems yira and humility, and sometimes even a certain sense of embarrassment by recognizing that I'm doing certain things in the presence of the Ribono Shel Olam. Simas leiv hazo shel Adam hainu be'ek. So again, therefore, HaTzaddik posits over here, and this is just putting everything together. Reishis chachma yiras Hashem. The first step in the acquisition of Torah wisdom is yiras Hashem, reverence of Hashem. How do you come to reverence? HaTzaddik posits God awareness. God awareness creates a sense, which makes sense. God awareness says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is with me and by me in everything. That everything Everything. Let's say, we all know that in terms of our human relationships, there's the public side of me and there's the private side of me. And the truth is, everyone might know the public side of me, almost no one knows the private side of me. And that's sometimes I'm very happy about that, because there are certain things that I do on the private side of me that I don't want anyone else to know about. The incredible part of our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu is He knows the public and He knows the private. He knows everything. When you create that sense of God, and that's God awareness, that Shivisi Hashem L'negdi Samad, I place Hashem before me at all times. When I recognize that Hashem knows the private side and the public side, ultimately that creates this sense of yira. That creates this sense of reverence. Rabbi HaTzaddik goes on, he says, and how does all of this work? And how does a person, but now he's circling back, and what is the mechanism by which to establish that sense of God awareness, which then leads to a sense of Yiras Hashem reverence? He says, Hainu be'ikar al yedei habrachas. Everything comes back to the bracha. Rabbi Tzaddik's whole thesis in this is that a bracha is what creates God awareness. When you say, he goes on, he says, Shalachein tiknu chazal, this is incredible, Shalachein tiknu chazal es nusach habrachas, shekulan maschilin belashon nochach. So it's interesting. I mentioned this last night in the Chassidus Chabur, and we're learning the Pia Jansna. Rabbi Tzaddik makes an interesting observation. He says, how are brachos phrased? Brachos are phrased as Baruch Atah Hashem. Atah is not a statement about God, but rather it's a statement to God. To God. Baruch Atah Hashem. Atah, you. So the Rebbe says that's called Lashon Nochach. B'mash omrim Baruch Atah Hashem. B'lashon Nochach Lashem Yisbarach v'lo Baruch Hu. In other words, it could have said Baruch Hu Hashem Elokeinu Melech HaOlam, and then fill in the blank. Blessed is God. Blessed. It doesn't say that. And that'd be talking about God. Brachos are phrased as talking to God. Why are brachos phrased as talking to God? He says, "V'kavanas chazal bazeh he shemiyat shebaschos habracha tzarich lios Hashem yisbarach nochach einav." Because the entire point of a bracha is a dialogical connection to a God who is right in front of me. Right in front of me. That is the whole. Remember, this is Rabbi Tzaddik's whole point, that the essence of a bracha is to create God awareness. How does a bracha create God awareness? I'm talking not about God. I'm talking to God. Baruch Atah Hashem, Lashon Nochach, right across from me, right next to me is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He goes on, he says, Neged Eino Shel Adam Mamish, V'yidne ki idu HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'chvodo u'ba'atzmo omed alav u'mitzavei al asiyas mitzazu. He says, for example, you're making a bracha over a mitzvah, right? So Rabbi Tzaddik says, so for example, right, in just a little bit, we're going to put on tefillin, right? So when I say the bracha Tashem Elokeinu Melech HaOlam, Asher Yisham Sav Tzivanu Laniach Tefillin, the fact that I say Baruch Atah Hashem, I'm saying Ribono Shel Olam. You're standing right here, and you're telling me, please put on tefillin. Please put on tefillin. That's a bracha. I hear the whisper of the Ribono Shel Olam to me, telling me to perform. This is not commanding me, not patching me, not for asking me. Say, let's have a relationship together, and here's what I'd like you to do as part of this relationship. So every single bracha cultivates this sense of God awareness, because I'm talking to the divine that is literally standing right next to me. Now this is actually very interesting. With this we'll have to conclude. So if you notice something fascinating. So now the Rabbi Tzaddik points out, every bracha says Baruch Atah Hashem Lashon Nochach. I'm talking to God. By talking to God, that means God is right here. God is right here. That instills within me a sense of God awareness, that Hashem is everywhere. The sense of God awareness is the first step in creation of Yiras Shamayim, a sense of real reverence of the Ribono Shel Olam. But Rabbi Tzaddik now makes an amazing observation. He says, Vasim Shel Bracha, Hu B'lashon Nistar, B'gov Shlishi, Ukigon Hu, Kigon Hamotzi, Borei Nosen HaTorah. So we'll say, listen to this. This is actually fascinating. Look at the bracha. Let's just use his example of Hamotzi, right? I say, Baruch Atah Hashem, Elokeinu Melech HaOlam. So that's Lashon Nochach, right? Blessed are you, Hashem, or Hashem, you are the source of all blessing. King, Master of the universe. I'm talking to God. Then if you look at the suffix of the bracha, and Rabbi Tzaddik posits that this is true with all brachas, it's Hamotzi Lechem Min Haaretz, the one who brings forth bread from the earth. So isn't that interesting? Hamotzi is now third person, the one. So now I'm no longer talking to God, but rather what? I'm talking about God. Fascinating. So within one bracha, I've gone from what he calls Lashon Nochach, direct dialogue, talking to God, to Lashon Nistar, talking about God. So what's the pshat? What's the pshat? Why isn't it incredible how you can be making brachas your entire life, and never realize this profound shift just within the text of the bracha itself? I go from Lashon Nochach, I'm talking to God, to about God. So what's the pshat? And listen to this. I will say this is absolutely incredible. Rabbi HaTzaddik says, "V'taimo shal shinui zeh." Humishum demiyad acharei ha'akar lenochach sheish la'adam b'tchilas habracha ne'elav me'adam ha'karazu. Rabbi HaTzaddik says something amazing. He says that sometimes in life, right, I have on one hand Baruch Atah Hashem, and Baruch Atah Hashem is that beautiful and incredible moment when I recognize that I'm talking to God. I'm talking to God. There is that direct dialogical connection. Shivisi Hashem lenegdi summit. I'm making a bracha. Yiras Hashem. Reishis Chachma Yiras Hashem. I feel God in my life. So we'll say what happens in our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu is it ebbs and flows. There are peaks and there are valleys. And in one moment I could feel the presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in my life, and I have this sense of God awareness, but yet in the next moment it's gone. In the next moment, it's gone. And that entire experience is captured in a bracha. That in one moment, it's Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam. It's you, I'm talking to you. And in the next moment, Hamotzi Lechem Min Haaretz. I'm not talking to God, but rather, I'm talking about God. Rabbi HaTzaddik is saying it's important also to frame our expectations. That while it's wonderful to be able to try to establish a sense of relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, where I always feel the presence of God in my life, and I always feel a sense of connection, and I always feel together, and I could get there, but it's important to frame expectations. And even if you get there, it's hard to remain there. And inevitably, once you get there, you'll enjoy it, but at some point in time, it'll slip away. But that's okay. What do you do when it slips away? What do you do when it slips away? You just try hard again to regain it. And every single bracha we make captures the dynamic of our relationship with the Rebbe Shalom. Rabbi HaTzaddik says we're out of time, so we have to stop over here. But Rabbi HaTzaddik says there's this concept in Chassidus of Ratzah v'Shov. It's really a Kabbalistic concept. Ratzah v'Shov, which means forward and backwards. That our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not consistent. Our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu is always, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It frustrates us. We feel like a failure, but in fact, it's not failure. It's just normal. It's just normal, like every single other relationship. There are times that are great, and there are times that are challenging. What do you do in times that are great? You rejoice, you're happy. What do you do in times that are failures? You pick yourself up, and you try harder the next time. So within every single bracha, Rabbi HaTzaddik says, is this exact dynamic. In one moment, Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam, I feel Hashem. He's with me. I'm talking right to Him, and then, Hamotzi Lechem Min Haaretz. Suddenly I'm not talking to Him, I'm talking about Him. Why? I lost my God awareness. I lost it. I had it, I lost it, but that's okay. Because then the next moment I'm going to make another bracha. And then it's going to be Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam. I'm going to regain it. And then I'm going to lose it. And says Rabbi HaTzaddik, as much as we talk about the creation of this sense of God awareness, it's equally as important to understand no one holds onto it constantly. We have it, we lose it, and then it becomes our avoda to regain it. I will say more about this in Meretz Hashem next week. Shkayach, everyone. Thank you.